And we are live. Hello, everyone. Alejandro Tornato here, coming directly from Beaufort, Georgia. And as I promised you before, and if you saw all the posts that I did on Facebook in anticipation of this great conversation, another episode of Conversation with Influencers, you know that today you are all for a treat. We are having a treat today because I have a great guest with me, and she's coming directly from Warsaw, Poland. So, Conversations with Influencers is not just a local show, but we are indeed an international. We are breaking through international barriers, and I love it. So, without any delay, I want to bring my friend Aleksandra Lewandowska to accompany me here. And how are you doing, Aleksandra, today?
Hello, I'm doing great, and I was looking forward to speaking with you and to meeting everybody and talking about this subject.
Yes, definitely. I could not wait. I mean, to talk about this and to really have an opportunity to introduce you to this audience. I mean, whoever is joining us live, or if people who are going to get the video, the recording later on. But before we actually dive into the subject, and the subject for today is absolutely, I mean, is a smash hit. And I said it before, we're going to be talking about and discussing the topic of connecting and connection over perfection. So, for all those of you out there who have been perhaps struggling with perfectionism, or who are perfectionists, I strongly encourage you, join us live and get this conversation, because we are going to we are going to try to exhaust the topic, and we won't be able to do it, but we'll strive to that. And before we do that, I want to tell you a little bit about Aleksandra. And Aleksandra is a keynote speaker. She's also a voiceover actress. I mean, an MC and a translator. Um, she is a student of the Meisner technique of acting. And as we start, then in a couple of minutes, I would like Aleksandra to share a little bit what is the Meisner technique of acting. I mean, it's absolutely fascinating. Now, she is very active, although right now, I mean, she's taking a little bit of a sabbatical, but she has been extremely active in Toastmasters International. You can go to her YouTube channel, and you can watch some of her presentations. Absolutely incredible. She is a very talented speaker. And she's also, she hosts TEDx events in Poland, and she coaches TEDx speakers. So you can see that her level and her ability and her knowledge of public speaking is such that she's coaching other speakers for TEDx talks. So, and also, among other things, I mean, she loves dancing. And she loves dancing, perhaps flamenco, because I'm going to tell you what I read that she wrote the analogy between public speaking and flamenco. She says, public speaking is like flamenco, full of twists and turns and rapid stops. Now, that is the most, I guess, creative definition of public speaking that I have heard. And without any delay, I just want Aleksandra, I mean, to really
To dance.
let us know. Now, I said that you are a student of the Meissner technique of acting. So, if you can expand on that, what is this technique all about?
Well, very briefly, because we are going to talk about perfectionism,
Sure.
I'll just say that Meissner technique is about focusing on your partner, which is a great way to go out of your head, where we are usually stuck as people, as speakers, as actors. So you're not thinking how you are performing in the eyes of the audience. You're not thinking how good you are or how bad you are, because your attention is completely on your partner, on the other person, and you are acting on your impulse. So not from your head, but from your heart. And you are looking the other person straight into the eye, and you say the first thing that comes to you, like what you are sensing from the other person. Like I can say you are intrigued. And then the other person repeats that, I am intrigued. And then I repeat, you are intrigued. And we notice what comes out in this exchange, what emotions will change, how emotions will change when we allow each other to be authentic in front of each other. So it's fascinating. It's fascinating to experience that. It's fascinating to watch as well. I tried Meissner technique in 2 schools in London. Also, I'm studying this in Warsaw. So if anybody is interested, I invite you really to join Laboratorium Meissnera in Warsaw. That's the school where you can learn. In Poland and I think in other countries, it's also quite popular. So find an acting coach or an acting school for yourself that trains in Meissner technique, because I think it's a great tool, not only for actors, but also for self-development. If you want to be in better contact with yourself, your emotions, and you want to, if you want to pay more attention to people, if you want to be more attentive to people, I really recommend that from my heart.
Excellent. Yes. And I think that, well, you're a speaker. I am a speaker. So for speakers, when we are in front of an audience, I mean, it doesn't matter how many people, but when we are in front of others, I think that this technique of really helping us to connect with other people in a more, I guess, authentic and in a more meaningful way, it's something that every speaker should be, yes, where can I learn more about this? Because if you really want to impact, have a positive impact in an audience, then you want to not just communicate, but you want to go even further and connect with people.
Exactly. But quite often it happens that more emphasis is put not on the connection, not on established this true contact with audience, but on how we are going to look in front of the audience. So you are like in a dual mode, because one of you is the speaker who actually is giving the speech, and the other one of you is like observing and taking notes, like, did I do that well? Or how did I say this sentence? Are they happy? Are they pleased? Okay, so maybe I should modify it. You know, so you're not really in the experience, and you are not allowing the audience to experience you, because you are scrutinizing your actions and criticizing yourself already, like you are your own director. Or on the other hand, you are flooding the audience with knowledge when in fact they might already know the things you are telling them, because let's face it, we are not discovering America every time we speak. But it's more like, you know, bringing your unique take on that subject.
Yes.
And connection is what allows this knowledge to actually get to the heart of the audience. So you don't have to reveal anything brand new to them. It's actually how you say it that can finally get to their heart, because maybe they heard some slogans, you know, like many, many times before, but maybe you'll be the only person that actually gets that message to their heart if you connect. But if you are a perfectionist, that might be hard.
That's exactly right, and that's where we are coming to the topic of perfectionism. I read an article, and in that article it says perfectionism is driven primarily by internal pressures, such as the desire to avoid failure and avoid harsh judgment. So when we act as perfectionists, is because, of course, we don't want to fail. We don't want to make mistakes. I mean, oh my goodness. I mean, if we make mistakes, I mean, that's the end of life as we know it. And also, we are afraid of what other people are going to be saying. I mean, what is the judgment, not only from others, but what is our internal judgment that is going to say, hey, Alejandro, you blew it again. You made a fool out of yourself. I mean, what were you thinking? And so forth. And yet, I think that, and I tried it with myself. That's why I can speak. I mean, from my own experience, you know, sometimes when we make fools out of ourselves, that connects with people so much better than if we try to be, hey, look at me, I am perfect, every all around me. Now, what is your experience with that, Alexandra?
Oh, definitely. I think, yeah, what we've often failed to realize that people are not in the least bit, really, they are not interested in our perfection. And even though we think that we may achieve such a state of such excellence in our craft that we will be perceived as, gods and goddesses of public speaking or whatever other discipline you are practicing, now other people actually view us as an ordinary human being. Sorry. So they can see our faults, even though we try to hide it. And the more relatable we are, the more human we are, the more we actually fail, the better. And I don't know if you watched World Championships of Public Speaking in Toastmasters,
Yes.
but actually I've noticed that in some cases the people who won, or the people who came second and third, they actually made mistakes on stage. They stumbled with their words, and sometimes they look as if they forgot. And it doesn't matter. Once they were able to connect, people tend to overlook such, how to call it, mistakes. Actually, a perfect performance would be imperfect because it would be robotic. If people can see that all your gestures are so well rehearsed, that you've actually delivered this line like 1,000 times to make sure it's perfect, they can have a like strange sensation, like, is it a tape recorder talking to me, or is it a human being?
And that's exactly the other thing is, and I believe that if you are a perfectionist, obviously, until you have the awareness of that, you cannot see. It's like you are in that perfectionistic box and you cannot see outside. And you tend to do things, and you're striving, for that perfection. And the way that perfectionist people, perhaps they go into they very easily get into depression and anxiety, is because they are trying to do something that is, in my opinion, impossible, and is trying to transform themselves from a human being, that's who we are, into like a machine or a computer that really, once it's programmed right, it just doesn't make any mistakes because it keeps repeating the same thing over and over and over, and there's no mistakes. And how sad it is, because I had the opportunity, to watch people speaking and people doing things. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the speaking arena. And once you see that someone is doing things, and you can see them that they want everything, it has to be perfect from every angle that you look at it, everything is perfect. It there's no beauty in that. I think that there is no beauty in that. um, when you look at landscapes, and when you look at the world is not perfect. There is so much imperfection. When you look at a mountain, it doesn't have polished edges, and it doesn't have, no. It's far from perfect. But that's what you call beauty, isn't it?
Exactly. And I think that what they might be afraid of is actually this raw beauty of being human. Because I think at the core of perfection is this fear of being human, the fear of being just an average human being like everybody else, because it's striving to be superhuman, to be to not to make mistakes, as you said, so to be like above everybody else, so above everybody else, and as you previously mentioned, above judgment, above reproach, because they have this, this judge. We all have this judge inside of ourselves that criticizes us sometimes mercilessly.
Mm-hmm.
But in the case of a perfectionist, this judge is really merciless, right? And other people might not even notice this, that they judge themselves so harshly, and as a result, they might even tend to avoid any actual, real, good life challenges just to avoid the chance to fail.
Yeah. Um, Listen, for those of you who are watching, this is remember this: the goal is connection, not perfection. The goal is connection. Whatever you do, try to connect with people. And there's another aspect of connection that I would like your insight on, because when we talk about connection, most of us, most people, we associate connection between us and somebody else, or another person, or a group of people, or an audience. Okay, but there's another aspect of connection, which is connection with yourself. Doesn't have to be with anything external. It's just an inner connection. And do you think, Alexandra, that um, people who are not able to connect internally with themselves, with who they are, what are some of the problems associated with those kinds of individuals?
Well, first of all, that's what makes you even more prone to perfectionism, because if you are not connected to yourself, you have no idea what your true deepest desire is. And that's why you go for these superficial goals, like, okay, people will, clap their hands, or people will admire me. And you go for these desires, like, for example, wanting to be an actor to get an Oscar, because the Oscar is a
yes,
proof that I am somebody special.
yes, or how many likes do I get on Facebook? I mean,
Yeah.
when I post such and such a thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like this conversation. How many likes do we have already? Yeah, that's interesting.
Yes, and that is, I mean, do you think that people who are not able to self-connect, I mean, connect with themselves, is that a sign of insecurity?
Is it a sign of insecurity? Maybe one of the maybe one of the symptoms. And insecurity, I would say it's a consequence of not being able to connect to yourself. Because if you are, out of place, if you are not connected, you need to search frantically for some safety, for some security. If you can't be at home here, you have to find this home somewhere else, maybe in the eyes of other people who will give you approval, who will nod their heads and say, yeah, you are good. But you have to work very hard to maintain this position, in their eyes. And this might, grow into an unachievable goal to you because you need more and more work to attain this position. Every triumph forces you to another triumph. But if you don't have this, connection to your true self, to what you truly desire, then you won't be able to derive pleasure from the very process you are engaged in. And that's the thing, because perfectionism, it's only, striving towards an outcome. A perfectionist thinks, if I achieve this, if I become, I don't know, an Oscar winning actress, if I become a world champion, if I become the top manager, if I achieve this, achieve that, I will finally be happy, for example. I will finally be calm. But that's not the way it works. This peace that comes from inside, it's not dependent on achievements. And on the other hand, people who are engaging in healthy self-development, they enjoy the process of doing things. So you might not win a championship, you might not get an Oscar, you might not get the position you want, but you enjoy the way, you enjoy the journey, you enjoy the things that you are learning, and you are happy noticing how you are changing. Both when you achieve something and when you fail at something, and you're also happy, like, oh, and I behaved in a completely different way after this failure. That's interesting about me. I noticed that I failed and I survived. And that's also something you can celebrate, actually.
I think that what you just said, is a gold gem, because still we are in the year 2020, and still people think that the more that they get, and the more that they strive to more and more. Let's say you made certain amount of money last year. Well, this year you have to make double that. And you have one car. Well, how about having a second car? And you think that when you have that extra amount, whatever that extra is, that is going to settle you and calm you. And it doesn't. The more that you have, the more you want to have, and the more that, and the more, and so it's just an endless race toward striving towards something. And that's why perfectionism is something that everybody who strives to be perfect, they are on that race, and they'll never get to where they want to get. And the reason is very simple, is because we have not been created perfected or perfect human beings. And so striving to perfection is something that it's in here, but it can never be it can never be made into a reality for any person.
Definitely not.
Yeah, it's just striving for something that in the end is going to be a futile effort. And so,
yeah, and in the meantime, you miss out on life.
That's right. And the question is then, what has that race done to you? It's have you, like you said, have you enjoyed the journey as opposed to reaching that goal in the distance called perfection? I achieve and I am perfect. Well, what is that? That's not like a badge of honor, that you wear. So as a matter of fact, when we talk about perfectionism, and when we talk about connection, a few years ago, when I started on my journey, and I was part of Toastmasters as well, my I heard so many people give speeches and talk in front of an audience, and then I said, that person, of course, that person had a message, to share. Okay, it had something that they were communicating. But I always thought that they were communicating, but they were not connecting with anybody. I mean, certainly, I mean, they were not connecting with me at at
Mhm.
at, at an emotional level. And so I began to deep and dive deeper into these two areas. I mean, are we communicating or are we connecting? I mean, is communication and connection two things that are very far apart? And then I came to the conclusion that yes, I mean they are very different things. I mean, and and people, some people, they can communicate something, but they didn't connect with anybody. And other people is they're all the opposite. I mean, they have a message, but they connect with others. And I think that there are two things, or perhaps three things, that enhance the ability of someone to connect with others. And one is being authentic, authenticity. So, um, what can you say, or how can you expand on this area of authenticity and being, whether you are a speaker in front on a stage, or whether you are a leader in a corporation or a manager, how does authenticity put you on a different level from most other people?
So I think we are coming back to what you said about the perfectionist being greedy and never having enough of what they achieve.
Hmm.
Because this, this collecting achievements and going faster and faster and never stopping and enjoying what you are doing and looking for the outcome is a symptom of not wanting to experience what you are doing, which means you are avoiding feeling because you don't want to meet like the person who you really are. So you just, you remain at the surface level just to, achieve something, but you're not going into the deep, right? So you're not experiencing that, you're not feeling, and you're not experiencing yourself as a person. So this is related to the perfectionist tendency to polish, to improve their image all the time, their self-image and the image in the eyes of other people, because image is extremely important for such people. They want to have this impeccable image of the perfect person. And if they work on that image for so long that they actually believe it themselves, that they are this perfect people, and they have all sorts of distorted beliefs, like I can never make a mistake, I can never be wrong in a discussion, because my employees would laugh at me, for example, if they notice that the boss has, made a mistake, then it's actually impossible for that person to be authentic. Because what does it mean to be authentic? To be authentic, is to admit, as we said in the beginning, that we are all ordinary human beings, that we are vulnerable, that we have weaknesses, that sometimes we will always make mistakes because there's always some factor that we didn't, foresee, and that's normal. And what we do, we forgive one another for that, right? Of course, we try to do our best. It's not saying that it's great to be lazy and sloppy and, just fail at your work, but still there will be this human element. And as you said, like nature, the imperfections are beautiful, and it's like this human touch, like that it's not robotic and perfectly even and so on. So yeah, this authenticity, it begins when you admit that, yes, I am a human being, and other people see it whether I try my best to hide it or not. So it's better not to hide it. And I know that for a perfectionist, it's really hard to believe that they would be accepted as they are, because they have this distorted belief that they are only accepted if they are superhuman, if they do more than enough. Actually, for a perfectionist to hear that, what, you are good enough, that would be tragedy. So many times people say, yeah, I always think I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. And what if somebody told you, you know what? You are good enough. You are average. What would happen then? But I
Oh,
don't want to be good enough. I want to be perfect.
I think that the worst insult that we can share with a perfectionist is, "Hey, don't worry. I mean, you're good enough." Oh
Yeah.
my goodness! I mean, that person. I mean, it'll probably slap you. I mean, a few times
Yeah.
because I mean, for a perfectionist, good enough is like no, please. I
Yeah.
mean,
It's all or nothing. It's either you're the best or you don't exist.
that's exactly right. But one of the things that you talked about is this concept of or this idea that a perfectionist doesn't feel comfortable exploring. I mean, a perfectionist is not an explorer. Um, I tell you, I never met him in person. But I don't think that Columbus was a perfectionist. And I don't think that some of the other explorers in history that discover things in the world were a little bit like a perfectionist, because if they would have been perfectionists, we were still being perhaps living in caves, and not because just the action of being an explorer is you put yourself out there for mistakes and for
And
failure,
for ridicule.
that for ridicule. Yes, because you come up with ideas that says, hey, the world is not squared. I mean, the world is round, and everybody. But that's, I mean, that in the mind of a perfectionist, I mean, it's a no, 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 no. Is that correct? I mean, Alexandra?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Exactly.
yes. And now, and I think that for those of us, I mean, who are not perfectionists or recovering perfectionists, um, it's the I mean the beauty of exploring new ideas and new things, and rather than just walking on the highway, okay, is just getting into the field and getting into the mud and just walking on the mat and getting dirty because you want to explore and see where's this road take me. And with a perfectionistic view, I mean, that is not possible. That is impossible.
And actually, what perfectionists need is compassion. They don't need, to beat themselves up, because if you are listening to this, anybody, and you are a perfectionist yourself, or you recognize yourself in what we are talking about, it's not meant to criticize you or to make you beat yourself up even more because you're probably doing this already.
Mhm.
It's just showing that it doesn't have to be like that. Life is way more interesting. You're missing out on your life if you don't explore. Life is, to a large extent, about exploring. And obviously, perfectionism has its payoffs. Otherwise, nobody would do that, right? Of course, if you continuously are, good at something that brings you some rewards, you don't want to miss out on that. You want this approval of other people, or approval in your own eyes. But think, if you could replace that reward with some other, even better one. If you could, what could happen if you actually risk and explore? If you went into the field that is unknown to you, of course you might look ridiculous.
Mhm.
Maybe you will fail, but you will experience actually the actual self-development. That's the self-development. Because if you remain a perfectionist, it's like playing only one string at the violin. You have the violin with four strings and you're playing one string and you're perfect at playing one string, but that's not what the violin's for.
That,
You're not going to get good music if you just specialize in one string.
that,
No offense to people who specialize, who are experts at something, but still, there are so many options to explore. And leaving this perfectionistic attitude won't rob you of achievements. Actually, on the contrary, because if you are free to risk, you are more likely to achieve something because you won't stifle yourself in this one mode of action.
Mm.
You will explore other options. You'll be more creative because creativity is also the antidote to perfection. Perfectionism doesn't allow you to create. Perfectionism wants you to create the same thing over and over again.
Because you know that that thing is repeatable, but you have mastered it so much that there's no, I mean, the possibilities of making a mistakes are very, very low, so you keep doing the same thing. And when it comes to that, you see, not only authenticity is a good thing for connection and to avoid perfectionism, but the virtue of being curious, curiosity. Perfectionists are not curious people, because curiosity can take you into a room that, hey, you don't know what you're going to find behind the door. And rather than open the door and see what it's inside, then the perfectionist is going to say, oh no, I just keep the door shut because I am safe, and nothing happens on this end, on this side of the door.
Yes,
uh
and that's actually a great attitude to have, because if you are a perfectionist and you imagine that, there's somebody watching you like a judge and waiting for you to make a mistake, you can treat yourself like, like an object in laboratory, that you are attempting to do something for the first time. So obviously you might fail, and just notice what happened and don't judge anything that happens. Like if you fail, then you can take notes and observe how you felt, what led to that failure, what can you avoid next time, and just experiment. Experiment, because treat it like a new adventure, like that you discovered how you behave in these circumstances, or you discovered how your body behaves, how what feelings you have when you are when you face such and such situation.
yeah.
So, be curious of yourself, be curious of other people, and it will take you, to places definitely better than the ones that perfectionists can take you to, because perfections will actually make you stuck in one place. You won't see a lot. So if you have the soul of a traveler, and these days we are all confined to our homes and we cannot travel, so at least let's try to travel mentally, let's try to travel emotionally to be richer human beings.
Yeah. um as an In the profession of acting, as an actress, um are there any benefits? I mean, does an actor perform? Because obviously you want to. I mean, if you're going to be performing, I mean, in movies, or if you're going to be performing on stage, I mean, in the theater, and you're in front of people, in front of an audience, and they're looking at you. Um, how can an actor uh, be uh, more in the present, acting, being in the present, and not thinking about uh, I mean, himself or herself, but thinking beyond that. I mean, it's just trying to be in that moment, acting, and not thinking. I mean, am I doing this perfectly? I mean, how are people viewing me? How are they looking? I mean, if you can put all those things aside and just immerse yourself in that present moment, whatever you're doing in that acting moment, is that something that we can emulate in our daily lives?
Of course. So coming back to Meisner technique, I said that the most important part is to focus on your partner. So never focus on yourself. And it goes the same way, whatever you are doing, if you, whether you are a manager, whether you work with a document, you focus on the document, on what you are doing, not on yourself, how you are perceived. And whether you are giving a speech also, in your company, for example, or on stage, if you are a presenter, focus on the task that you have. I always give this example with a person that warns you about a fire, when they storm into the room and they say fire, right? Do they think like, oh, is my voice tone the right, is it the right tone for this message? And what about my body language? They're not paying attention to the fact they are all in the message, because it's so important. The message is of primary importance. If you immerse yourself that much in what you have to do, like put that task before yourself, the task is the most important thing to do. Another thing is practice. Practice makes perfect. Practice doesn't make a perfectionist. The more you practice, the more trust you develop in your abilities. And the same goes for actors. We have emotional preparation before a scene, and once we prepare emotionally, we forget about the assumptions for the scene. We forget about what should happen and what the outcome is. We totally trust that we've done our job. We launch the processes that are to be started if the emotions are to flow from us, and we trust the process.
Yeah.
And we trust that we've got it. And this trust, this self-trust, it's something you learn throughout life. The more experiences you have, the more you learn that, yeah, I can trust myself. I've been there before. I've had such experiences, and I know that I can do that. I don't have to, race in my mind over and over again, if I can do that, if I'm going to fail, if I'm going to make a mistake. Well, once you do that, you actually start making mistakes because you've let your guard off. You stopped focusing on the task that's in front of you, and you started, going around, and that's what actually makes you fail.
That's right. As a matter of fact, I mean, that is a great way. Some time ago, I heard someone describe, and have you seen, perhaps even in the circus or somewhere else, I mean, people walking on a tightrope, okay, on a tall building and without net at the bottom. I mean, they're walking on a tightrope. And people who walk on tightropes, how do they do it? I mean, they are concentrating, they're looking. You never seen a person walking on a tightrope that is looking down or is looking up or is looking on the sides. They are just looking in front of them, to the other end, and they are in the very moment and in the very act. They are not thinking, well, how did people look? I mean, do they think that they like, that step that I just made? I mean, was that the perfect step? I mean, was that a good, can I change it? No. Their whole attention is in front of them and in the very moment and the task that they're doing. Because if they lose that, they know that the next second, they plummet, and that's the end of tightrope for them.
Yeah, I think that's the source of many of our problems, that we have this tendency to skip in our minds, like you're going on a first date, you are actually picturing, the wedding, or you are starting your first day at work, and you're thinking, oh, one day I'm going to be the manager of this company. You're not being in what you're having now. Of course, it's great to have like some perspective, right, for your life, but don't let that rob you of what's happening now, because your life is happening right now. I know it might sound, it's commonplace, right? But that's the way it is. Actually, we have this moment now to use it to the best of our ability, and when we do it, what do we get as a present? We get another present moment.
That's right. Let me read something to you that I thought that it was, really enlightening. It says, perfectionism is directly connected to self-esteem. At the root of perfectionism is usually an early experience in life of not enough reassurance and encouragement, possibly combined with criticism. So, when we are in our developmental ages, as we are growing up, if people the only thing that we hear from people are discouragements and criticisms, and you've done okay, but, and there's always that but, because you haven't really reached expectations, or what people expected. I think that once you hear that uh, often enough, and a lot, then you begin to develop that internal machine that says, hey, I will not stop until I am perfect, and until I make everything perfect, because I don't want to hear anymore any critics or any criticism or any bad things coming at me. And I think that that's a sad thing, that the people would live their lives thinking that they are not as good as they could potentially be.
True, but on the other hand, there is a poem, my Edgar Lee Masters, I guess. I don't know if I'm going to get that name right. I'm not perfect at remembering names, unfortunately. But the poem is about a young man who lost his life, and he's speaking, from the land of the dead, speaking about his life.
Mhm.
And he said that everybody told him that he was promising. That's it's said that when you want to destroy somebody, tell him that he's promising. you know? And
Yeah.
and he was actually pretty average all his life. He never amounted to anything, in the eyes of the world. And he concludes this poem by saying, well, nobody actually knew the truth, that in fact I was average, because people saw some, things of genius in him when he was a child. And everybody thought that he would become this great man who would perhaps invent like a medicine, or, do something extraordinary. Where in fact he was a normal, talented boy. And that's it. And of course, there are so many movements, human potential and what can we do and so on. But also, I think that what can be beneficial to us is just adopting this perspective that perhaps even if you have the perfect conditions and the perfect schools and the perfect teachers and so on, perhaps you could still be good, but not the best, not excellent, not, nothing out of the ordinary. And I think that's pretty normal. That's something we could expect. But the thing is that we have a distorted view of how our development should go, because it's the culture of not appreciating failures, and humanity has always learned the most from failures, actually, from discovering that something didn't work, and then we do it in another way, and that's how progress is happening, right?
That's right.
But if we are told, there is this tendency of telling every child, oh, that you are special, but so is everybody else, So I'm all for telling, kids that are special. I have a little nephew, and he's absolutely special to his aunt. But yes, he's special because I have a connection with him. And he's special in every single way because he's a unique human being. And that's what we should emphasize. You are special because you are unique. And you are a mystery even to yourself, and a mystery to be explored, and not a problem to be solved,
Yes.
So it's not like you are the only person who is special and you need to, improve it until you are super special. but it's rather you are special just like everybody else, and you can deepen these relationships and you can explore what wonderful things you can do with your life when you don't treat yourself as a, as a product that needs to be improved all the time, because that actually, it robs you of the very flavor of life. If you treat other people as, and your relationship as strategic, and not that other people are not precious in your life. You cannot have a deep connection with them, but you just look at people and say, how can this person help me, to further my career? How can this person help me to achieve my goals? And they are actually objects in your life. So you are not enriching their lives, they are not enriching yours. You are just using one another, and it always smells bad.
Yes. As a matter of fact, I mean, as you were speaking, one thing came into my mind, and that was a few years ago. I was living in Salt Lake City, Utah. Okay, and I remember one morning going to the gym, to my local gym. I mean, to work out. And after I finished my workout, I mean, I was all sweaty. I went into the restroom, I mean, just to wash my face a little bit and just clean up I mean, the sweat. Um, and so another gentleman came into the restroom, and this has to be with a connection, okay, with a deeper connection. This gentleman came into the restroom also, like an older gentleman with a ponytail, I mean, a headband. And um, and so we began, that chit chat. I mean, that you started with a person that you have never met in your life. I mean, that was the very first time. And well, how are you doing? I mean, what a sunny day. I mean, did you have a good workout? I mean, that kind of thing. And so he was very respectful. And 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 I remember, I mean, I was like looking myself in the mirror, and he was on my left side, and he turned and he looked at me, and he asked me this question, Alexandra. Now, this man has never met me before. I have never met him. And he looked at me and he said, "What are you creating today?" Right? I mean, right off the blue. And so I heard the question, but I guess my brain did not process the question. And so I turned to him and I said, "What? What did you ask me?" And he was kind of the very, very nice, and says, "Yes, I mean, what are you creating today?" And so from that question, we stayed, I think, outside of the gym, and we talked for another 2.5 hours about almost anything. I mean, any kind of topic. But that question connected us. It was a connecting vehicle, and he wasn't, by no means, he was not trying to be a perfect. I mean, he says, I mean, do you think that this was a perfect question to ask? I mean, no, no, no. It was a natural question. It was just a question because he was curious, and he wanted to get to know. I mean, what my answer was going to be. I mean, what was I creating that day?
And he spotted a creative person in you.
That's exactly right. And so I think that the whole point of the story is that if we are letting go of expectations, I mean, if we are letting go of what other people may think of us or may say, if we let go of just trying to achieve perfection in life. I mean, if we are just enjoying life, living life to the fullest, and helping other people doing the same, I mean, Alexandra, who cares about perfectionism then?
Maybe
and
people who watch the show.
and the question is, why would we want to make everything perfect? What is the point of trying to make everything perfect?
Maybe this is this underlying belief that we actually are not perfect and that it's something terribly wrong. No, but we obviously know we are not perfect, right? Everybody
Yeah.
knows that we are all making mistakes, unless some people are so delusional that they think they actually are, but rather hopeless, right? Okay.
That's right. It's
But
better. It's better not to hang out. I mean, with those kinds of people for a long period of time.
but I think it's sometimes I think that there might be this belief that once I put myself in order, once I get rid of all these things I don't like about myself, once and for all, as if it were possible, I will be free to enjoy my life. So there is always this: if only I do this, if only I achieve this, if only I get rid of this fault or whatever, I will be free to live my life. But unfortunately, life, as we know, that doesn't work that way. So it's about humility, I guess. It's just accepting your weakness every day, accepting that, yeah, you will be failing every day.
Yeah.
And that's life. And actually, it's not a one man or one woman show. You're not like an actor in a traveling theater that you are traveling with your show and everybody's watching you and everybody's rating you. No, nobody's watching you, unfortunately. So you can actually, take a deep breath and you can start living your life because switch that TV off. Nobody's watching you, nobody's scrutinizing all your action, nobody's making notes of your behavior. Definitely not.
My goodness, Alexandra, nobody's watching me. You just crush my self-esteem.
Sorry,
How
I hope
dare you?
somebody's watching us right now. Anybody's watching us?
But yes, I tell you, I mean, it's great. I mean, I think that when we take that coat of trying to be perfect, is like it brings to us that level of freedom. I mean, we are free to do whatever we want to do, because then whether we succeed or we fail or we make a mistake or we make a boo boo here and a boo boo there, I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, who cares? I mean, and and I heard someone says, you know, um, people people are not, and you just said it. People are not there to watch. I mean, they're not paying attention to your mistakes. I mean, if there's a connection, then people forget about the mistakes, and they are immersed in what they are getting in the moment, in the beauty of the moment, not the mistakes.
And if they are over focused on your mistakes, that then actually something wrong with them, if
That,
because some people are, so bent on, just finding fault and finding something they can criticize, but it doesn't mean there is something wrong with you and you should, perfect yourself to the point that they won't find any fault, because they still will, because that's their job, they are just specializing in this. But
that's right.
that's their thing. You can leave them with that until they notice that there's something wrong with such an attitude towards people. Not trying to see the best in people, but trying to find something that they could criticize you for.
That's exactly right. Now, as we wrap up this great conversation, I mean, I know, at the beginning I said that we were striving to exhaust the topic. Well, we haven't even got to the half point. Okay.
Yeah, but nobody's perfect. Sorry.
That's exactly right. So, I mean, perfection is out of the window. I mean, what I typically do is I ask my guests two final questions, and the first one is for you, Alexandra. I mean, what what is your definition of success? I mean, what is for Aleksandra Lewandowska success?
Well, success is definitely not something that is visible, or it does not necessarily has to be visible in the eyes of other people. But success is to actually find the purpose why I'm here, to find that purpose and to live it out every day. So actually for me it's love, it's being connected to God, to myself and to other people, and to helping other people be their most authentic self. And you know, every success for me is helping other people achieve the same. So if I achieve something, I want other people to experience that too. So success lies in sharing whatever I know and whatever I achieve.
Excellent. So remember, success is not being stingy.
Yeah.
is
Even
and
though it starts with S.
that,
But
yeah,
sharing
that,
starts with S too.
that's
Share
exactly,
success.
that's exactly right. And the second question is, um, I am a firm believer that we can truly live limitless lives. So, what is for you? What do you think that living a limitless life really is and really entails?
First of all, I would say to go beyond the limits that were instilled in you since you were a child. Because it's a real tragedy, I guess, when people spend their whole lives confined to that small space that somebody, you know, defined for them when they were little, and they were not mature enough to notice that some beliefs are not their own. And for me, limits have to do with fear. So there's nothing like, you know, going beyond one's limits once and for all, because everything is a process. So moving beyond the fear every day, one step at a time, every day more, so that I can overcome what I'm afraid of.
Mm.
And there's no limit in love, you know, there's no limit in love, because love overcomes fear. And it's also, you know, rejecting the fear of being ridiculous in the eyes of other people. In It's rejecting the fear of appearing eccentric, perhaps, because other people might not recognize that what you are doing is good. Because, as you said about Christopher Columbus, all great explorers, all people who actually achieved something when they were not perfectionists, but they were
Mhm.
people who were not afraid to go beyond the limits when they noticed that there is something there. So I'm not a proponent of, you know, breaking the rules or going beyond the limits just because it's a fancy thing to do, because I'm a rebel and I don't care about limits. No, it's first it begins with noticing what's beyond the horizon,
Yeah.
and then it requires enormous courage and self-trust that it's worth going there, not only for your own sake, but for the sake of other people who will then follow because they can see on your example that it's possible.
Excellent, excellent. I love that, and just thinking of that explanation. I mean that knowing that knowing that perhaps, I mean, there is a limit there, but then I'm going to go and I'm going to perhaps even go beyond that limit and see what's on the other side of that limit,
Still speak for yourself.
and then conquering that limitation, conquering that. And so true.
And
So
coming back for others to experience that too.
that's
That's also a part I really enjoy, because I really
yes,
love
yes,
sharing when I discovered something and I know that other people can enjoy it too. So I'm very grateful I had the opportunity to share
exactly.
with you what I discovered about perfectionism.
Yes, no, thank you so very much. Now, before we wrap it up, I mean, if people want to connect with you, I mean, how? I mean, can they do it? I mean, on Facebook, or how they'll be able, I mean, to reach out to you?
Sure, they can do it on Facebook. I'm Aleksandra Lewandowska. I also have the fan page Aleksandra Lewandowska Inspirational Keynote Speaker. And I also run a fan page and a channel called Into the Deep, where I provide online Ignatian meditations,
Excellent.
guided meditations every Sunday. Now we are having a break because it's summertime, but we
Sure.
will be back in autumn.
Excellent. Excellent. So thank you so very much. I really appreciate you. I mean, now you are part of my circle of power. I mean,
Yay!
and I really appreciate, I mean, your insights, and the way, the I think that the most important thing is the way that we show up in the world, and we are trying to connect with other like-minded people in order to make a difference. I think that that is one of the most rewarding things that we can do, and I certainly appreciate you, Aleksandra. All the very best, and we'll definitely stay connected. And for all of you, I mean, you know that I love to bring every broadcast to a close by reminding you to live every moment. Live every moment. Be resilient, and also be kind, be passionate, be intentional, and try not to be a perfectionist. Okay, live life to the fullest, but strive to be your authentic self. And until the next time that we meet, all the very best. Take care,
Thank
and thank you
you.
very much. Bye
Bye.
bye. Bye.
Bye.